the virtues of punctuality, my friend.
Says the person who's always late. No, I didn't sleep in. I actually, I just forgot to send you the link on time. Yeah, so that's not that good. You know,
Well,
we gotta do better by our listeners. So welcome everybody to Talking Niagara this morning with me, Peter Giblett, and him, Dave Wheeler. Morning, Dave.
good morning, Peter. Good morning, our listeners. How's everybody out there today? It's going to be a nice warm day today. It's like 18 or something degrees. There's Metaphysical Mike. I knew he'd be there. Hi, Mike. I was waiting for Metaphysical Mike.
There we go. You see. Okay. So so lack of this is lack of this was one story we didn't get to yesterday, was the lack of transparency over this Welland condo collapse is concerning one MPP.
Oh yeah, I read that a couple of days ago. Yeah, so we know now the names of the engineers. They're the ones that are on the hook right now for this. Somehow, Never Trust, previously known as Ever Trust. So Never Trust has somehow got away with this. Although I would think that they were the primary body that would be responsible for this, since they're the ones that hired the engineers and they have the ultimate responsibility.
Yeah.
And there isn't a whole lot come out yet about this. It's under investigation. We find Joyce Morocco being an apologist for this, and yet nobody really knows exactly what happened. And I really don't really like that. I want to see that out in the open. Isn't that what's supposed to happen when you have these collapses could have hurt somebody, even killed somebody, and yet we don't really know how those things collapsed or what is the state of the investigation. And the Niagara Center NDP MPP Jim Birch is calling for transparency from the Ontario Ministry of Labour, Immigration and Training Skills Development after it investigated the collapse. So the investigation has already happened, but what happened?
Yeah,
no one's telling anyone.
And that bothers me a lot. Is that we did a horrible accident. We don't, nothing we like, but I like the results of the investigation public. I think the whole thing should have been held in public. And I'm very much a fan of these things, being held in public.
Yeah, and we had a serious building problem. Is this going to happen again? There are two engineers on the hook for this. Never Trust seems to are just saying, "Oh, their buildings are safe and all." Well, yeah, of course you're going to say that. And what happened? What happened? Yeah. Where was the mess up? There was two collapses. Remember, the first one, then followed by a second one.
Yeah, I know.
So whatever it was unstable. Was unstable in a big way, and you're sitting in a situation where you're just kind of lucky there were no men on the site at the time. It happened on the weekend, I think.
Yeah,
there was no men on site.
Yeah, both of these happened when there was no men on site, because when the second one occurred, it had all been fenced off and nobody was permitted on the site.
Yeah, and where are the engineers' reports? What happened? Where was mistakes made? Obviously, there's a couple different ways in which you can get this. And now they're putting the heat on the engineers, and maybe the engineers were flawless in this. Maybe the contractor executed the sequence of assembly in a way that was easier for them, but more dangerous. We don't know. What kind of shortcuts were made? What kind of flaws in the construction? Was it the design flaw? All these things have to be found out, and because Never Trust has built other condos and other buildings, is there any uh, uh, latent
we should
hazards
be
in those other
concerned.
buildings yet to
Yeah.
happen?
Well, we should be concerned about other buildings that potentially led to happen. I remember looking this up. There's a whole raft of buildings, and they were showcasing on their website, of course, the ones that they are building right now. And they had about 10 to 15 buildings going up across the province, 2 or 3 of them in Brampton and Markham and places like that. Northern Toronto area. And these are, this is a big company doing a lot of work. And I think the concern should well be, further reaching than just the one building in Welland. Are those other 15 buildings in any danger?
Well, after the accident happened, we heard reports of other buildings that Never Trust had built, and they had a bunch of problems and ongoing problems that weren't resolved.
Yeah.
So, what kind of outfit is this? Is it a, it's acting like a fly by nighter?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
And the resolve is, so when you add to the fact that the previous buildings they've made, there's a host of problems with them, or at least it seemed to us when we read the articles some time ago.
Yeah. Sometimes though, those things are written as a kind of knee-jerk reaction, and that the problems reported are minor by comparison.
It didn't sound like too minor of a thing to me, the way it was, and I still wonder about the unlikelihood of, but still the possibility of a latent failure in the building, the similar to what happened to them when they were putting up the building. I have a feeling they were taking shortcuts, and being a guy that's worked construction for a long time, industrial construction, but I can I've done some residential too. But so if you cross it over, what I see is somebody's been taking shortcuts.
Yeah,
that's what I think. They're putting up structures with not enough support to put them up quick and put the supports in later, because that was the fastest way to do it, maybe. But that's just my reckoning, if I was to guess. And that may be the erector's fault, not the engineer's fault. Yeah. The engineers can't be on site. So what the engineers do is they engineer the building. They come on site once in a while, but then they hire a contractor, and this is how you're going to build it here. And the contractor will make decisions based on the plans.
My understanding of many of these buildings, Dave, and you're a lot closer to it than I've ever been. My understanding is that they put these steel frameworks up, and then they pour concrete around the boxed in steel areas, and that those steel bits, there's a kind of combination of concrete and steel, and the pour has to happen in the right combination, doesn't it?
It has to be, because the concrete will begin to crumble and crack if you don't have this rebar.
Yeah. And the point that I'm seeing, what I saw about that building is all I could see was actually 2 layers of steel supports and hardly any concrete in there. So that it's like they didn't pour the concrete, do the concrete pour.
Possibly. We don't know. That the parts that fell down, weren't. I don't think they were the columns, but they were more of the superstructure, the outside structure that would probably have been affixed to the column somewhere, where it was columns and beams somewhere else. But it's I don't know. I never had a look at the place, but when I saw what happened in the newspaper, my first feeling was somebody's been taking shortcuts here.
Yeah. Now mine too. And you see, and the only reason I know something about this is because my dad was a builder.
Yeah.
Right. So he would tell me about building structure, pretty well all structures. They were always the family story at the dinner table. You know what I mean? So he would actually talk about, he'd often talk about how many times he had they brought the designs to him, and when they built the buildings, he was, like yourself, he was in industrial building, right? So he built it in the docks for most of his life, and when they came to him, they'd kind of look at the plans and they'd kind of go, well, we have to change this to make it work.
Oh, sure. There's always adjustments. There's
Yeah.
always adjustments, and quite often the feedback from the tradesmen on the floor is essential.
Yeah.
Because the engineer or the architect hadn't counted on this or that.
Yeah. Well, they don't know the precise lie of the land that the guy who's actually now digging in the spot sees the precise lie of the land, don't they?
Yeah. Ran into that all kinds of times. And sometimes engineers were lampooned quite a bit on site because they get some pretty wacky ideas of what they were going to be able to do. And it took I remember
that was what my dad always said, hey, that he one time came and said to me, they built this structure where there weren't any stairs from the ground floor to the upper floors.
Yeah.
From the second floor up, there were stairwells, but not from the ground floor to the second floor.
Well, I tell you what things would happen. The world's largest building, the Hajj Khalifa.
Yeah.
It was in Dubai or something like that. The Hajj Khalifa. Do you know they forgot they made this fabulous structure, state of the art, everything, windows, concrete, steels. You know what they forgot? They forgot a sewage delivery system. So they put the bathrooms in, but they didn't put any kind of hookup to any kind of sewer thing.
Oh, my God.
The sewage has to be collected daily in trucks and then dumped somewhere else. So something as simple as that. And I can tell you right now that there were the plumbers on site that were putting in the pipes and the plumbing and all that probably tried to tell them 100 times, where is the sewage going to go? You don't have any place there is no sewage. We're not hooking up to anything that takes this away.
Yeah.
Where is it going to go?
They're building it from the bathrooms, all the pipes down from the bathrooms on those stacks that they build. And that bathroom was going nowhere.
That's right. And I am certain that the regular guy on the floor, the most basic plumber could look around and see, hey, wait a minute. Did you guys not understand? Don't you see you didn't hook up your sewer system to anything here? And he probably just got overlooked because they were star-studded with, stars in their eyes about how huge wonderful this building was. But there was one of the most fundamental things in it that had to be solved later by collecting the waste that comes out of that huge building and trucking it away.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. That really is.
Another one like that, when they built the underground headquarters for the British Army or for the British military in London during the Second World War, they did the same. They built these huge tunnels, deep tunnels, and everything was there, like all the electronics, all the radio stuff, and everything you can think of was down there, and it was protected from bombs and all that. But nobody thought to put a bathroom in it anywhere. So anytime anyone had to leave to go to the bathroom, they had to go up the elevator, out the door, into the street, to find they probably had a restaurant or something close by that they could use. But that was another
that's a big security giveaway, and of course that's why that bunker never got used.
Yeah, well, it got used during the Blitz. It sure was, and the people just had to leave all the time because it was bomb proof. But that's the kind of dumb things that happen.
This is the one at Golders Green, isn't it?
I'm not so sure, but it was the major one. I think I think you still access it because I saw something on TV with it once the videos were down there. So they went around and talked all about what it was about, but they did mention that no one thought to put a bathroom.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, because you get too overwhelmed with the major purpose of the building, so you make this beautiful, powerfully bomb resistant shelter, and it's got all your communications and all the things you think of, and no one thought, you know what, we need some water and we need a toilet and we need, we can't even make coffee down here.
Well, they got swept away. They got swept away in the moment, didn't they? As all I can really think about with that.
Yeah,
they got swept away in the moment. They needed a secure location, and they built it, and they didn't put in the right checks and balances in. And that's what you've got here, is the lack of the right checks and balances.
Yeah, and coming back to you, humble Welland and Never Trust, I think we have Peter Biker here saying, I am reminded of the Hyatt Regency Hotel walkway collapse in 1981, which occurred in Kansas City when the plans were fatally altered during construction. Yes, you have things like that where, they somewhere along the line. I think a good example in fiction was the Towering Inferno. There's a movie called The Towering Inferno. Paul Newman was in it, and he was the architect. He was the architect. What the builders did, the building was designed, and yet it lit on fire because someone changed the wiring gauge to a much with one of much less capacity, and it caused a spark, and away it went. And that is the typical thing where that's in fiction, but that's the kind of thing that does happen. Okay, we're going to need this particular kind of wire because because of the lengths in which we need to transmit power. If it's if it's under code, then it's going to heat up because it can't transfer the power as well in a smaller cable. So those are things that, will happen for sure.
Well, Mike was saying that cement drivers tell him that the concrete was a nightmare. Trucks were waiting too long, and slump tests were ignored. Slump tests in the concrete, I'm assuming. That's
well.
The slump test.
That's part of the problem that we're here in Welland.
Yeah, this is what he's heard from cement. This is what he's heard from cement drivers, right?
Okay.
Mike talks to a lot of people, right?
Wow. Okay. So you guessed that it might have been concrete. You may have been right there.
Yeah. Well, my situation is when I looked at that building, I'm looking at the way that they typically build buildings, and I grant you that, hey, I don't know the latest 2020s technology necessarily, because it's a long time since I had contact with the building trade in that regard. But based upon what I learned from my father, these buildings go up, and there's a particular way of pour. You've got to build and pour at the same time, and that's the way it's always been done. Since the first of these buildings went up in the 1920s, there's that builder. You've got to put the concrete, you've got to put the metal foundation in and pour the concrete. And there's always a pour.
Well, we still don't know if that was the problem, but what Mike is showing here is there are inefficiencies. If they're calling on a concrete truck and not pouring right away long enough, then that concrete starts to go bad, or it's not up to standard. So that what Mike's indicated here, we still don't know if it's concrete or whatever it was, but obviously the site had problems coordinating its construction, and so a badly coordinated work site is just as bad as anything that can lead to accidents. So it'd be nice to know, but the fact that they haven't revealed what it is the big problem there, because who's going to buy those condos now?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Right. Joyce Morocco's come out and says, "Oh, everything's safe now. Everything's back online, and we're doing good." You wouldn't find me buying one of those condos.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely, 100% not. And it got me looking at other buildings around as well. This collapse, right?
And then we're going to find more and more of this.
Yeah, there's a new construction, for example, going up next to the parking garage that I use in Garden Street in St. Catharines, and it caused me to look at that one. And I'm not saying there's anything at all wrong with that particular one, but I was looking at that in finite detail, how they were doing the pour, how they were doing all of the construction on all the floors there, and but it causes you to get you thinking, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, my biggest problem, the thing I'm thinking of, is we are trying to rapidly build a lot of things. This is not giving us time to get enough skilled laborers in there. And what happens is you get people with unfulfilled skills. What you normally get on a work site is you get your young men, right, and they have to learn. So they know how to do a lot of things, but the older guys know exactly how it's supposed to be done. And what happens is when you have too many inexperienced workers on it, things get missed, and because you don't have the eyes of experience. And I think I have a fear that a lot of the buildings that are being built are going to be substandard, because it might be a kitchen cabinet door will fall off, or the toilet won't work, or a window won't close, and that's because you have too many men or young men coming into the field without proper supervision. They don't have enough experience in the field. You used to have the old guys that knew everything, and the guys who were about middle-aged that knew most of everything, but could do everything. And then you have the young guys that were guided by the older guys.
And there was that whole apprenticeship cycle, wasn't there? So you had like a seven. My father went through a 7-year apprenticeship to get his trade qualifications, and that used to be the same for most trades, wasn't it?
Yeah, mine was 4 years on the tools and 2 years in trade school.
Yeah.
So I needed to get 2,000 hours on the tools.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. So those are, and
no, it was 8,000. Sorry, 8,000 hours.
Like that. Yeah. Okay. And Mike Cushman makes the point that negligence is not an accident.
Yeah. No, negligence. And in this particular case, it looks like that. I mean, I still come back to how come we don't know? How come we don't know what actually happened there?
We need these reports made public, because, for example, if there was an error made in something of the construction, and you were talking about would you live there, and you say no, you wouldn't live there, because and it's largely because of the collapse, right? But again, would you live there if you were guaranteed that in fact they now corrected the problem and they'd gotten it right?
Yeah, if I could be reassured of what happened and when and how they took corrective measures. But having heard from Mike and what he's just said about the concrete trucks, that would not reassure me at all. To tell me then I could be assured that the structure is fine, but I will not be assured that all other things are fine if they're late with their concrete, if their planning is not correct. So I don't know if my concrete balcony is going to start to spall. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know. And basically, there has to be, with a lot of these buildings, there's a steady flow of, there's like one truck an hour coming through the thing, or one truck every, so many minutes, right?
Yeah,
And it's
well,
part of,
it has to be scheduled. It has to be timed correctly, and
yeah,
all the men
absolutely.
that are all the workers there have got to be ready to go. Okay, we're going to pour concrete today. Who's all here? Is all our concrete guys here? Yeah, okay. All right. Get on the job, prep the site. They're coming in an hour. But then your guys don't get there and they don't prep the site and somebody hasn't thought of it thoroughly. Then they got to waste time prepping the site and while the concrete trucks just rolling and rolling and rolling. And Peter Biker says the building under construction in Welland was vulnerable, as bearing walls were not clad yet to the exposed framing. Okay, so there was no structural support,
Yeah.
which added weight to the upper
That
floor.
was
So there you go.
that was exactly the kind of the fear that I had looking, and I'm only looking at the pictures, so I'm not seeing it up close.
Well, we got two really good comments from Peter Biker and Metaphysical Mike, which has done more for us to illuminate what may have been the problems than the investigation has revealed so far.
Yeah, and I still would like to see that investigation. I think it's right that it should be. All investigations like that should always be open. The results should always be open. All right. Right, we'll move on. Why did Asahi Kasei decide to build its plant in Niagara?
Well, this is the battery separating plant, isn't it?
Yeah,
The huge
yeah.
battery separating plant that promises to bring
Lithium
1,000
ion
jobs.
battery separator plant. Yeah.
So this is going to bring. Let me get the article up here. This is going to bring 1,000 jobs to the area, to the region, primarily from and around Port Colborne.
Port Colborne, yeah. Well,
Now
1,000 jobs is good in any environment. Adding 1,000 jobs to the workforce in any location is a good thing.
Yes, because there's a lot of spin-off stuff too. So you're employing 1,000 people, and then those 1,000 people buy cars and they buy wash machines. The company itself needs to sub out contract work. They'll have to use a machine shop. They'll have to use local transportation systems. So it is a huge boon for the area. So you get 1,000 direct jobs and probably 2 or 3 jobs for every one of those, at least indirectly.
Asahi Kasei is saying that they were backed by abundant renewable resources, skilled talent, and strong local community support in Port Colborne, and will be better able to serve our partners in the region as well as the broader North American automotive market from this facility. So that's a large part about why they're bringing it here.
Yeah, and what they have is a list of must-haves and a list of we would like to see list. We would like to see list, of course, is not nearly as important as the must-have list. So he said, despite the fact that he himself is Canadian from out west, he had no intention of bringing anything Canada just because it was Canada. Yeah. And no intention to bring anything to Southern Ontario just because it was Southern Ontario. So they looked all around the world. This is an international company that works in many different places in the world, and decided, even with all its flaws, things that weren't as good as they had hoped, it still outranked the other possibilities where they could have put the plant. So basically what he's saying, yeah, you got pretty good potential here, but you got to work with us. And one of the potential is the disconnect with the feds. He's saying here the feds are very nice and very cordial towards him, but there is no connection with them. He needs a reliable information back and forth from the feds, and he
Needs
has to get.
basically, reliable communication with the federal government or any government enables them to get the project done. Yeah, I get it.
He's got better. He says locally he's doing very well. The communication systems here are doing very well, and I assume with the province as well. But his main disconnect is with the feds. So he is encouraging everybody here who want that investment to help him solve some of these problems. Now he's got one that is one of his would like to see list would be a Japanese restaurant, and the closest good one is about 2 hours away. So he says, okay, we can live with that, but other things like one of the main criteria was transportation, and you got the canal there, roadways. You can get roadways there, and so the infrastructure there has to be improved, but it's already there to get started. So I can imagine there'll be better road services, better rail links, all those things.
One of the issues about Port Cockburn, of course, is that yes, it's well served if we're talking about the canal access, but it's not that well served when it comes to road, because the 406 ends in Welland. They didn't take the option with the 406 to jump the canal and head down to Port Cockburn on the 140, take the 140 route down to Port Cockburn. So, trucking things down to Port Cockburn is, there's problems with the truck route because there isn't a highway there.
Yeah. So here he basically says, he said the company developed a matrix of about 200 criteria listing things we must have, as well as things we would like to have. That's in his words. I already told you. But they also have to have 110 megawatts of electricity. And one of their criteria is they want more green power, a lot of available power, but it has to be green. Now he's put aside more of Ontario power is green than is in our competitive radius, basically. So if you try to go into the States, which is a really good place to put a factory like this too, you could put it in Buffalo, for crying out loud. You got the Erie Canal, you got the Welland Canal, you got your freights and all that kind of thing. So you think, well, why would he put it there? But one of the criteria is to get greener power. And here in Ontario, 50% of our base load is nuclear, which means it doesn't put carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. We have a lot of renewables, and the other ones are natural gas. So he says the dirty power that was available in the United States was a deterrent to them. They wanted something a little bit more greener. And as we've seen, even with Doug Ford, he's done a new green initiative as well, putting up more renewable resources like wind turbines and solar. And of course, we talked about the initiatives for power generation that the Ontario power minister has touted and has actually taken to Ottawa as well. So I think these things are probably one of the things that attracts them. And they're going to have 110 megawatts of power. That's no little amount of power, I can tell you that. And
but again, I always wonder with these, when they bring a new plant in, and we talked about it with houses. We talked about other energy sources like heat pumps and that kind of thing. With houses, can't that be done for these kind of corporations when they put big buildings in?
I don't know how they're going to do their weather. They'll probably do it the cheapest way, even if it has to use natural gas or whatever. But I think I like the way he puts it here. He says, despite Niagara's success, he said there is plenty of room for improvement. And the colorful way in which he phrases it, it says let's not get drunk on our own ice wine. It makes for a wicked hangover. Of course, commenting on what we're famous for is one of the things we're famous for here is ice wine. There's a lot of good things that we're doing and working on making this happen. I'm quite delighted, though, and here's things too that which I didn't expect. He says, and I'm going to quote him again. He says, "Please keep doing those things, but what else can you do? As much as I love the region, I think there are real challenges. Number one, we have to win the housing race. Having to pay $600,000 or $700,000 for a house is not sustainable business." And although although,
Mike, you got an industrial ally, Mike.
Yeah. He said having another one was to have, even though Brock University and Niagara College can be, will now provide courses and things like that, which would help his industry. He's not comfortable with the fact that they haven't really. They'll have to sort of get busy and get those things done. It says, although Brock University and Niagara College were key components in luring Asahi Kasei to the region, he says, we have to make sure those college programs are adaptable in the future. Yeah. So there are things to be done, but I'm really quite happy that this thing is going in here. This is a very, very good.
That's the wider impact, of course, of this is that they're employing 1,000 workers, but there's a much wider impact. And Mike makes the point of Niagara Falls City Council should talk to Port City Council to learn how to attract industry. Yeah. Thank you, Mike. My thoughts precisely. I think you and I see eye to eye on a lot of these sort of things. We need high-tech things like this coming here to the Falls. Absolutely.
Well, the fact that it's in the region is a good move. It's already in the Niagara region.
There will be workers who come from Niagara Falls who will work in that plant. That's for sure.
Well, yeah, and also once one is established in the region, and whatever attracted that company to this region
will cause others to come.
Yeah, and remember, Welland used to have some industries because of the canal. I have a feeling the canal is going to be more and more important when more and more industries come in. We used to ship out a lot of big paper through ships and things like that along the Welland Canal and other things. That was an important place, but it's a transportation hub that's essential. And I think that just the fact that you have an ability to transport a lot of heavy items in bulk, both in train and canal, I think that's probably one of the things that's going to draw people here. And once one of these things is established, then you will find other ones coming as well.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, that's certainly true. And I think that is a step in the right direction. Yeah, we've got challenges, but no advance comes without challenges, does it?
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
But anyway, all the money. Look, Port Colborne's going to get all these jobs, but we've got a casino to take all our money away from them. So it'll help us.
Yeah. Okay, so Ontario is sending $200 rebates to 15 million people around the province. It's a large chunk of the province. And there's, of course, speculation. There's, of course, speculation by the Liberal press that, in fact, this is because he's hinting at an early election in 2020, an early Ontario election in 2025. And yeah, hey, it may well be the case.
Dougie. Okay, what's this for?
But I'll take my $200, and if I'm voting elsewhere, I'd vote elsewhere.
I'm looking at this as a compensation for the buck of beer that never happened, Dougie. So but I'm going to need more than $200.
Well, that is,
Right?
yeah, a buck of beer. You've read more than 200 beers since he was elected, right?
Yes, Dougie. And I still can't buy a beer for $1, Dougie. So if you really want to compensate me for all the beer I've bought that wasn't $1 a beer, you're going to have to make this $1,000 every year.
Well, I think you just given me an idea about what I might spend my $200 on. Maybe I'll get myself a nice whiskey for Christmas.
That'd be nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, is this a carrot? It is a very typical ploy of governments. It doesn't matter what the government is, they do a giveaway of some kind or other before an election. Look what we're doing for you. Here's your early Christmas present. Because, our election happens before Christmas. So here it is. I think an early election is a possibility. I don't think he's really decided on it yet.
Yeah. What gets me though is that if we end up with what we don't want to be happening here is we don't, Doug Ford, not we. I mean, Doug Ford doesn't really want to be happening here. Is to be holding an election in Ontario at the same time, at around about the same time as the federal election is called.
Yeah, and we see now there's a ultimatum for the Ontario or for the federal Liberals. I think it was. I don't know if it was yesterday or today that the bloc is now.
It's today. I think it's today. Yeah.
Yeah. So they have an ultimatum.
I was looking this morning. There was an article this morning, and I didn't collect it, but on one of these that pops up on your feed, that said that they seem to be cementing an alliance. The bloc seem to be cementing an alliance with the Conservatives now.
Yeah, they may. And of course, that's part of their ploy too. Do what we say, or we're going to go over to your enemies. We're gonna stop dating you. We're high maintenance. So if you want to date us, you're gonna have to take us out to dinner, big time. And I want some jewels and some baubles as well. But if you're not going to,
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
The Conservatives.
Yeah, but I'm not sure that the Conservatives would support that particular pension increase that they've been demanding for the Liberals.
Doesn't matter. As soon as they support it, the government comes down, so nothing can happen.
Yeah, I know.
So it doesn't matter. It's a means. Yeah. It's a means by which the Conservatives will bring down the government.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else on this $200 rebate?
Well, it goes on here too. Doug Ford he blames carbon taxes for high costs. He has given us credit, and we've got a carbon tax, but he's taken some of the Ontario tax out of diesel fuel, so the diesel fuel stays a little bit more reasonable. But that was taxes that we would go into the Ontario coffers. But so that's one thing he's done. And it goes on about the carbon tax. It kind of goes that way, like just about everything does. And of course, they talk about the carve outs and all that. Like talks about the government's announcement that it would extend the 5.7 cent cut in provincial gas tax. Gas tax to sort of relieve the pressure on the average person, which negates the purpose of the carbon tax in the first place. Carbon tax is supposed to be a punishment for you, what they call an incentive, but what I call is a cattle prod. We're going to hurt you, but it's for your own good, kind of thing. And Doug Ford has taken away some of that sort of supposed incentive to be more greener in on how you run your own life by taking away some of the tax. That high tax is the thing that's supposed to incentivize you to change your behavior.
Yeah. Green Party leader Mike Schreiner has criticised the government for sending the checks to even the wealthiest Ontarians, such as the CEO of Loblaws. And he said it's ridiculous that millionaires and billionaires like Galen Weston are getting a $200 check when so many Ontarians can't afford a place to live tonight. 2.5 million people don't have access to a doctor. Emergency departments are closing. And the government thinks it's a good idea to send Galen Weston a check, and yeah, Schreiner has something in about Galen Weston getting a check.
Yeah, well, of course he's the bad guy, isn't he? You know, he's blah blah.
I'm going to say, yeah, it's easy to paint the CEO of Loblaws as the bad guy here.
Yeah, and I don't think it's really fair to the guy, but or how business or the grocery business is run in Ontario. I think the $200 going to everybody is just to streamline it. If they took time to try to separate who should get the $200 relief, that would take time. It would take bureaucracy. But if they just give it to everybody, that's easy. And there are very, very few millionaires or whatever that will get the check that will make much of a difference. But the real issue, will it go to the average family? And I think that's a pretty good idea. Like all the things that she said there about doctors and about places to stay, that's all true, but they're not going to be fixed very quickly. You know, you can turn your attention to it. You can make a bill here, a bill there, but they won't relieve the pressure on the average person in any short-term way. But $200 in your pocket sure will.
Well, Peter Baker has an interesting idea. He's saying basically Dougie should buy back the debt 427 with that money.
You mean the 407?
407, yeah.
407. You might have 407. Well, that's something that he's floated. He has floated. He's criticized the move to sell that highway, even though it was done by a conservative that in other ways, like Harris, who he admired. Now, of course, Harris sold it because of the incredible debt that the Ontario government had incurred during that time of the recession, the early recession, and how the NDP had kind of bungled that too. So that was his excuse, but he gave it away for a song, basically speaking. And Ford doesn't like that, and he's trying to. Even though I think they got a 100-year or 99-year lease on the highway, and he wants something to reduce that to about 30 or 40 years, something like that. He wants to buy it back. But who's going to sell that cash cow? That's a gravy train and a half.
Yeah.
And when all the other roads are all plugged up, you might not have much alternative than pay for the road. So that's another thing. But it always, like, if somebody gets $200, at least they're getting it now. And it's hard to convince somebody that's
Well, I'm not.
I don't know. Will Christian Freeland get is she an Ontario citizen? Maybe she'll get the $200 too, and she can reenact. She can fire up her Disney Channel again.
Yeah. Okay. So here's also, you're right in some respects, because in fact what's going on there is people react to money in their pocket. Buying back the 407, not 427, Peter, is actually a thing which might benefit a lot of Ontarians, but it's not the same as cash in your pocket.
That's right. A lot of those people won't be using it. How many people in Ontario will be using it for? A lot of them. And the other thing is too, I'm going to take your tax dollars and buy the 407. That's going to be good for you. Well, it's not the same thing as here. I got $200.
Yeah.
And it's not the same thing of having a box of beer that's $24, Doug.
You won't give up on that one, will you?
No, I'm, geez, I almost started. I'll start a revolution over
Buck a beer revolution. Yeah,
that.
there was a song, wasn't there? Free beer for all the workers. When the
Well,
Red Revolution comes, or something like that.
yeah. Well, anyway, whether or not this is Doug's not committed to an election, of course, because he doesn't know when it was going to come. And the reason why I
Well, he
mentioned the block
doesn't want
and their ultimatum.
certainly he doesn't want an election at the same time as the Feds have one.
Yes, right. He doesn't know when that election is going to happen.
So he's going to pause any trigger on the election until the Feds have had theirs,
or until he's assured that they won't have it too much later.
Yeah,
and he might not even go that way anyway. He's amazingly popular for a premier that's bungled the green stuff so often, but he's very popular. He's a popular guy, and he looks like he's cooperated with him, and the Feds have cooperated, and they've got money from the Feds, and he's sped up certain construction and infrastructure stuff. And there are people working. There are lots and lots of construction workers out there working. I can tell you the building trades are probably happier than swine in refuse. You know, it's just the way they are, because people respond to prosperity. Seriously, what's on the dinner table? How much they're paying? Do they have the money to pay for the lights? Can they get the Disney Channel back?
No, Krista. I'm keeping my Disney Channel. Thank you very much.
That's the benchmark of affluence for Chrystia Freeland. Well, if you got the... That's what we did. We canceled the Disney Channel. Yeah. That's really encouraging.
The trouble is...
You're really pulling your weight.
The trouble is, I think, with any one of these, a couple of years ago, we came into the situation of we've had Netflix for probably as long as Netflix has been around. And we came to a point a couple of years ago where we said there's nothing new on Netflix. And
that's why I canceled it too.
And we canned it. And then, but about 6 months later, it's like, there's nothing, we watched Crave, and we went through Crave in about 6 months, and there's nothing on Crave. It's crap. We went through to some other things, and there really was nothing there. So we ended up just going back to Netflix anyway, and then by the time we went back to Netflix, now there's a whole new load of series that have caught up, so now we've got like two additional seasons of this and that and the other coming on Netflix. So
I pay for PBS, NPR, like public broadcasting. They're donations, but basically I think of them as the same thing. Yeah. So I contribute money to PBS and NPR radio. Yeah. Those things also to TVO, and those are the things I do. I also pay for the YouTube, because YouTube I can find a lot of really good things on YouTube, so that's why I get that. But there's other things. There's some podcasters and stuff. I send them small amounts of money. Sabina Hassenfelder, I sell her like, I don't know, $2 a month or something like that. And there's Melon Baker and
Chris Simone. Chris Simone asked a question with there were 15 million people in Ontario. Yeah, it's about 18 million now.
Yeah. 18 already. I thought it was still under 15 million, but anyway, it's around 15 million.
It's been above 15 million for ever since I've been here.
There you go.
Yeah. And
15 million times 200.
And basically, Peter Biker's saying a toast and cheers for the $1 beers.
That's right.
Love the poetry. I love the poetry. You get a thumbs up for that one, Peter.
We have an artist among us.
Yes.
We have a
Okay.
poet in
So,
the wings.
okay, one final story we got to do today. Niagara and St. Catharines are named in the rattiest cities list. The cities with the highest numbers of rats. We've been in that top 25 rattiest cities list, according to Orkin, who are, of course, a pest control company.
Well,
Right?
I don't know what it is with the rat infestation that we've faced for many years now. I even remember going to the funeral of a friend of mine in Toronto, and in broad daylight, there were rats running around the parking lot of the funeral home.
Yeah.
There were, when I first moved here, I would see rats every couple of days running along the fence lines. Now it's skunks and possum. This morning it was a possum. Last night it was a skunk.
Well,
so we do have those kind of things.
Yeah, in St. Catharines, I was walking down the street in King Street in St. Catharines about 6 months ago, and there were a group of 2 or 3 rats just standing there, standing their ground, doing whatever they were doing.
Socializing.
Socializing in the middle of the sidewalk, right?
Bold as brass.
Yeah,
Socializing right down in those.
And the thing was that people were going around them, people were avoiding them, and a lot of it, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that we've got more garbage containers than ever before. We're not emptying and disposing of the garbage. So the city streets have got all these new new kind of throw your waste here and put your recyclables there, and there's much more of them. And the worst is now the homeless are going through these things. They're pulling the bags out of the city bins and sorting through them, and there's garbage on the streets everywhere. And I think that's what's encouraging the rats.
Yeah, I don't think that's it. Just that, though.
No, not just that.
For some reason, we've got this rat infestation, and something is. Well, we don't have enough. We don't have as many predators as we used to have.
Yeah.
Probably that would take care of them. We have rat traps here in the compound. A guy comes every couple of weeks and changes the bait in all the traps. It's basically what it is, poison. And once last summer, I just found a dead rat, so I just assumed that he was otherwise looking healthy. So I thought probably it just ate the poison and died. But since they put up the rat traps there haven't been any. But there was a common occurrence for me to see them. And even in my other house, the last house I had, I saw a fair amount of rats running around the backyards and all that. And that used to be a rare thing, but it's not now. And you really think of these things as more of the slums and older parts of town. When I used to visit my grandmother and grandfather in Toronto when I was a little kid, they always had a rat and mice problem. My grandfather had bunches of dead bodies of rats and mice all the time. They had to catch them all the time because the old buildings were all attached to one another.
Yeah. You see, the fact that the first 4 names on this list are Toronto, Mississauga, Scarborough, Ottawa should not be a surprise, because they're some of the largest cities we have here, right? And they are naturally, therefore, there would be more rats in those cities. But the smaller, where we are, when you think about it, St. Catharines is 140,000. And they're 24th on this list, and Niagara is 100,000, and we are 18th on this list, which means that we have larger than we should have populations of, because we're 17th on this list is Burlington, which is about 3 times the size of, actually 4 times the size of Niagara Falls.
Well, I have a conspiracy theory. I'm sure this has happened.
I knew you would.
That these are are super lab rats that have escaped from a Chinese labs in Wuhan, and are whatever doesn't kill you make you stronger. So all the surviving lab rats in Chinese experiments have now made their way over to North America because they're really strong. They can swim.
I've got another alternative. I've
they're
got
nearly
another
invincible.
alternative conspiracy theory for you, Dave. Is that Orkin Canada and other pest control companies are slowly releasing these rats in the city streets in order that they get more business?
That's a good plan. That's a good plan.
That's my conspiracy theory here, you see. And you see, who better to do the rat report than the firms who actually release the rats on the, I'm joking. I am honestly very much joking. I don't want to be sued by Orkin Canada, and I'm sure they do a wonderful job with their rat collection.
Well, maybe they brought the super rats from China and brought them here.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So super rats from China. Yeah. But a large portion of this, if you think about it, they're all of these are Southern Ontario, except for basically Sudbury, are really Southern Ontario cities. They're all Golden Horseshoe cities here, right?
Well, true too. This is why you don't want to kill your foxes and your coyotes. They'll eat those things.
I think I'll get a pet fox.
Yeah.
Keep it in the garden. Yeah. Keep it in the garden.
Domestic cats are just about useless with a rat because they're not tough enough. The barn cat would tear to pieces, but domestic cats there might be good for mice, but when a rat comes around, that's too tough for them.
Actually, you know what? With she's no longer with us. And Melody, she'd look at the mouse, and if she saw a mouse, this is what I suspect she'd do. She'd go, tap tap. Are you doing anything? Look at the mouse, and if the mouse runs away, she'd go, oh. That would be her. That would be Melody.
Well, I heard a story. A guy I used to play baseball with, and he was living in an old farmhouse. He moved in for an old farmhouse for a while, but the thing was full of mice. So his girlfriend worked at the Humane Society. He says, "Bring me in a barn cat. Find a kind of like, I don't want a pet him type cat. I want a cat." So she did. She brought him a barn cat that they had saved somehow, and the cat went in there, and all he heard all night long was crunch, crunch, crunch. He killed about 15 in the night.
Yeah.
And you don't know, like when I went into my parents, they were getting pretty old, and I had to kill 11 mice because they had mice coming in for the first time ever, and except from when we first moved in, and the farm fields around here, mice didn't know what to do, so they tried to get into homes. But so my parents had mice would come in through the garage, and I had to find the hole, and then I had to set traps and kill. I think I killed 11 of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and the other thing, of course, that happens, and where there's a lot of building work going on, is actually you get rats. When there's new subdivisions going in, typically what happens is those are areas the rats and mice have been living in, and of course, once this new they start breaking ground on the new subdivision, those things scatter.
Well, I remember Benghazi when they knocked down an old part of the town. There was a really old part of town that was dated hundreds of years ago, and they knocked it down because it was just not worthy of anyone living in it. There were rats all over the city, day and night. I never seen so many rats in my life. There were hundreds of them, and especially at night. They were around during the day. They'd be running around during the day trying to find places to go. But at night, they would come out and they would just cover the street, and they crawl right up the walls. Amazing. And the cats, the feral cats out there wouldn't touch them because these rats were as big as they were.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So there was a few things about, about rats and things like that. It says remove clutter indoors, remove the clutter from indoors and outdoors, trim overgrown vegetation and keep grass short, eliminate moisture by clearing clogged gutters and fixing leaky pipes or faucets in indoors and outdoors. Clean up fallen fruits or vegetables in the yard, store garbage in rodent-proof bins, and prevent overflow. Close gaps in larger quarter-inch rodent-proof materials. Install weather strips on exterior doors to block entry points.
Stop eating cheese.
Damn, my favorite thing of all time.
You're a mouse enabler, rat enabler.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
But
this is
I
just
think
something.
those things only work to a limited extent. I've heard the question about somebody once said to somebody I
I
knew
have to take down the number.
who was talking about trying to grow their garden. They were trying to grow the grass in their garden. They wanted to have their garden natural, and the neighbor complained about how it encouraged rats and mice. And it's like, no, it doesn't. They
Well,
had this big humdinger of an argument about that.
well, rats and mice, they haven't been evolved to have a whole lot of babies, lots and lots of them, very fast because of predation. Predation takes away, like, everything eats mice. Even a crow will eat a mouse. You know what I mean? So cats, skunks are really good mousers. So rats and mice are vulnerable to predation. That's why they have so many young, and that's why they multiply so quickly. But if you have regular predation, that's not a problem. What you don't have that regular predation in a city, because you don't have the things around that eats them. You don't have enough. You don't have enough coyotes. You don't have enough foxes. You don't have enough skunks, even. But hawks and owls and all those things that eat those things. That's why they multiply so quickly.
Yeah, it's interesting because I saw a kestrel or a hawk up in the out close to our backyard over the weekend.
Yeah, and I've seen the hawks with mice in their talons, or rats in their talons and things like that. So, but there's just not enough predation. So that's how the rats explode. Yeah. They actually, more of them kill each other because a male rat will kill baby other rats and eat them. They're cannibalistic. So because of their rapid multiplication, because in the wild, that's something they need to maintain their populations, but not here. So their populations expand rapidly in urban and suburban areas.
Okay.
So anyway.
Peter Biker's basically saying, another great conversation to start my day. Off my own little rat race. Thanks again. Right. Okay.
Thank you,
and I
Peter.
think we've kind of come to the end of our show anyway.
Yes, indeedy. And without further ado, I bid you adieu. Peace, everyone.